Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Jessica. Thank you so much for being here today. Here are all the books I read in March. Here we go.
Here we go.
So one of the books that I read this month was this one here. It's called Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. And this is a very cute, cozy fantasy book about an orc named Viv. So an orc is like a humanoid kind of goblin type creature, and so she decides to put her battle sword down. She wants to stop fighting all these big epic battles that always happen in fantasy books. She wants a fresh start, and so she decides to start her own coffee shop in this brand new town that she's never been to, with all these creatures who have never heard of coffee. So she decides to branch out on her own. After she fights her last battle, she is given the Skelvert's stone, and this stone brings good fortune to anyone who owns it. So there is, of course, an enemy in this story. There is another creature who's kind of lurking around, and he's trying to get this stone from Viv. But this story is just so wholesome and cute. A lot of these friends that she makes start helping her with building the coffee shop. There's a lot of themes of kindness and community. This book is perfectly described as high fantasy with low stakes, and I loved that. It was just a really nice change to not have this huge conflict within a story. Usually I enjoy a really plot-driven book where there's a lot of action happening. This kind of just felt like a stroll in the park. I saw someone on Goodreads describe this book as sort of a mix between Dungeons and Dragons and Animal Crossing, which I thought was interesting, and I can really see that. There is also a big giant werecat in this book, and I thought that was fantastic. I would love for my cat to grow that huge. Maybe just for a day. And he kind of becomes like the little mascot for the coffee shop. He just hangs out there and starts living there. Super cute. This was just such a good book to cozy up with, of course with a coffee. And I'm really looking forward to the next book. Next one is called Bookstores and Bone Dust. Really looking forward to that. If you are looking for a fantasy book, but maybe you just want to skip over all the big battle scenes and the preparation for whatever big war is happening. If you want to take a break from those things, but you still want all the magical parts of a fantasy book, I would highly recommend this one here. I really enjoyed this. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. The next book that I'm going to talk about today is this one here, Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. This is the story of Elizabeth Zott, and she is a chemist at a research facility, and she ends up falling in love with this man named Calvin, and she gets pregnant. But since this is set in the 1960s and she's pregnant and she is not married, that is a huge no-no at this time, so she ends up losing her job. But then she pretty quickly gets another job as a TV chef for the show called Supper at 6, and she becomes this really great example for women on how to stand up for themselves, how to have their own hopes and dreams and opinions. She really just helps to transform society through this cooking show. This book covers sexism within the workplace, and also family and what the meaning of family is. It's not always the conventional family that was the standard back in this time. I wanted to pick this one up just because I had heard a lot of hype about it. It was the Barnes & Noble Book of the Year for 2022. Also, I have the special edition version with the bright blue pages. I love this. But I was also just really intrigued by the 1960s setting and the fact that she went from being a chemist to hosting a chef TV show. One thing that I loved about this book is I never knew what to expect next. I just kept getting surprised. There are really a lot of twists and turns, and I had no idea what was going to happen in the next chapter, and I loved it. The ending of this story was really great. The way that everything was wrapped up definitely made me a little emotional, a little teary-eyed, but in a good way. And there was sort of a mystery that was also solved by the end of this book. I don't want to give anything away, so I'm not gonna say anything more than that, but this story just really kept me on my toes. Made it really easy to read because it was just great storytelling. I really loved Elizabeth's character. She really took a lot of risks during a time when it was very frowned upon for women to take risks and make their own decisions. She came onto the TV set one day wearing pants. That's right, you guys, pants. And she just owned it, even though people were judging her because, you know, she's wearing pants. When she didn't agree with something, she said it. If she didn't want to do something, she said no. This book was great. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Speaking of strong, authentic women who take risks, we have Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, and I am so excited to talk about this book. First and foremost, I need to say that Jane Eyre is a bad bitch, okay? She's an icon, she's a legend, she's a star.
And she is the moment. Now, come on now.
She is one of the greatest literary characters ever written. She's so great. So this book is kind of a multi-genre one. It's got a little bit of mystery. Of course, it's a classic and it's a gothic romance, but I think above all, this is a coming of age story. I know this book is mostly described as a romance between Jane and Mr. Rochester, but I really think this story is meant to be all about Jane. It's really about her determination to exist as herself in a society that wants her to fit into a specific mold. This book is set in the Victorian era, but I was really surprised at how modern Jane's character was. Jane is orphaned at a very young age, and she's living with one of her aunts and her cousins, and they all treat her very poorly. She gets older and she attends this all-girls boarding school. She later on leaves to become a governess for a little girl named Adele, who is the ward of Mr. Rochester. I'm sorry, I'm probably gonna say his name like that the whole time. And she very quickly falls in love with Mr. Rochester, but he has a secret. That's kind of where the mystery portion of this book fits in. So this is her story, of course, about falling in love, but it's mostly about her fighting through all these hardships in her life to achieve her dreams. Jane, through this whole story, she really just seems to have a sense of knowing exactly who she is. She knows that she has a purpose for herself that's way bigger than she can imagine. She's an extremely passionate person. She knows that she has a purpose, and she's not willing to make any decisions that she doesn't fully trust with her heart. There were so many fantastic quotes in this book. I found it really easy to relate to Jane and a lot of the situations that she found herself in, even though this is set in the Victorian era. Again, some parts of this just felt very modern. It's timeless, honestly. There is this specific section in the book where Jane is a little bit older and she gets reunited with her cousins who were really mean to her when she was a kid. And she talks about how she is just no longer bothered by their opinions and what they have to say because she's too busy living her own life and enjoying it. She was absolutely just unbothered by anything they had to say, good or bad. And I mean, What a queen. I kind of felt like I needed to take a reading break after finishing this and just put on like some mindless television because the language is quite a lot to dig through. Very flowery language. There were some words that I needed to look up in the dictionary. So it kind of made my brain hurt. Just a little bit. It's just that everything is described in such colorful detail in the very best way. The writing really truly is beautiful. I absolutely loved that Jane addresses the reader through the whole story. It just really pulled me in and it made me feel like Jane and I were just sitting together next to the fireside and she was reading me her diary. That really helped me to really feel a personal connection to this book. I absolutely loved it. There are so many other things that I could say about this book, but this video would end up being very long. I might make a separate video just focusing on this book only because it really is an incredible piece of literature and I just want to dig into it a little bit more. I think it goes without saying, I give this a 5 out of 5 stars. This is an incredible book. If you are looking for a classic, I would recommend this one. The last book that I have here today is this one, Life's Too Short by Abby Jimenez. This is a cute little romance story and our two main characters are Vanessa and Adrian and they are neighbors in an apartment complex. Adrian is a really successful lawyer and Vanessa is a really successful YouTuber. She's a travel vlogger. Adrian, he really likes to be in control. Vanessa's a little more go with the flow. So we've got an opposites attracting little trope going on here. So Vanessa and Adrian meet one night when Adrian hears a baby crying from Vanessa's apartment. And so he goes over to see what's going on. He ends up calming the baby down and she falls asleep and their romance just kind of sparks from that point. This is not Vanessa's baby, it's her sister's baby. Vanessa's sister in this book is really struggling with drug addiction and so she's not able to properly care for her child. So Vanessa is taking care of Grace is her name. Vanessa has a lot of fears for her health because her mom and one of her other sisters passed away from ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. So Vanessa decides to start a YouTube channel to raise awareness for ALS, also just to share her life and show how to live life to the fullest and take in all that the universe has to offer. The chemistry in this book was so good. I loved that there were so many grand, sweeping, romantic gestures. The banter between Adrian and Vanessa was so fun, so witty, and the spicy scenes were really nice. It was also just so sweet the way these two people learned from one another and grew and came together to care for little baby Grace. Also, Vanessa introduces Adrian to The Office, so there are a lot of those references in this book, which I greatly appreciated. I can't even tell you how many times now I've watched that show.
It's really incalculable.
I wanted to pick this one up because it's an Abby Jimenez novel and I have not read any of her books yet. I think she might be one of my favorite romance authors now. This story was also inspired by a real person. Her name was Claire Wineland, and sadly she passed away from cystic fibrosis in 2018, but she founded a nonprofit organization to raise awareness for cystic fibrosis, and she had a huge social media following. I just thought it was really sweet that Abby chose to create a story inspired by Claire. Overall, I really liked this one. I definitely want to read more of Abby Jimenez's books in the future. I gave this a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads. These are the 4 books I read in March. I really had a great mix of genres this month. We've got literary fiction, cozy fantasy, a classic, and a romance. All right, well, that's it for this video today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.